Continue for 1.5 miles.
Of waiting traffic. They told me there's more than one vehicle stuck in water on Scotland's busiest motorway.
Britain will officially be declared in recession again this month for the first time since the 2009 financial crisis. Latest figures show nearly 750,000 people have already lost their jobs since lockdown started in March. Democratic US presidential candidate Joe Biden has made history by picking a black woman as his running mate. Kamala Harris is a Californian senator of Indian-Jamaican heritage. President Trump has reacted to the news.
I thought she was the meanest, the most horrible, most disrespectful of anybody in the US Senate. She's also known, from what I understand, as being just about the most liberal person in the US Senate.
The UK's biggest manufacturer of frozen potatoes is investing £25 million into the industry. McCain says it will help British farmers manage the problems caused by the weather and the coronavirus pandemic. Dwayne Johnson has been named the world's highest paid male actor for the second year running. Forbes magazine says the former wrestler earned £67 million in the 12 months to June. In the city, FTSE 100 will reopen at 61.54 after closing up 103 points yesterday. The pound buys $1.30 and €1.11. The weather, early thundery rain clearing northeast Scotland during the morning. Elsewhere, still hot with scattered thunderstorms developing during the afternoon. A high of 33 Celsius. From Global's newsroom, I'm Holly Harris.
When you find the perfect beach and there's not a soul on it, or when you order an ice cream and it comes with 2 extra flakes, it's great, isn't it? When something good gets even better. Like an approved used Audi. Because for a limited time they come with 2 years warranty, 2 years roadside assistance, 2 years key cover, and up to 2 years MOT cover. So buy until 30th of September and you'll be getting an Audi. And then some. Search Audi approved used. Audi. Ursprung durch Technik. Offer valid until 30th of September 2020 for vehicles from 12 to 96 months old. MOT cover and key cover underwritten by UK General Insurance Limited. Visit audi.co.uk.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
3 minutes after 7, Wednesday, August the 12th, it is. Tragically, my friends, official Britain is now in recession. We have the figures, we'll give them to you in just a moment, and asking exactly what it means for you as regards your wallet, your purse, and possibly your employment. Meanwhile, in other news, the latest development in the so-called migrant crisis is that a government minister says they're going to make the crossings unviable. Quite what that means, if you've travelled almost halfway around the world from Eritrea to try and start a new life, how it's going to be made unviable, we have no idea, but we'll look at that in more detail. Possibly good news for those students who are awaiting their A-level results tomorrow, in that they can now use their mocks. Effectively, they can pick their own exam results if their mocks come out better than their grades tomorrow, which seems to be a step forward. We'll give you full details. No further step forward into the murder of Stephen Lawrence. After 27 years, the Met, London's Metropolitan Police, will close its file. I'll be asking...
In 300 yards, keep right to continue towards Tons Lane, A355.
Still not been dealt with. We'll give you full details on that. And in a related theme, you'll be amazed. Apparently, the new word that causes all sorts of inappropriate race connotations is, and it's Marks and Spencers who fall victim of this, tobacco.
Keep right, then continue straight.
Tobacco. Why is that an offensive word? Stay tuned.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Before we get into the latest developments on the migrant crisis, and let me say, it was never going to be easy. This is a problem that, and I realise human lives are...
Continue straight.
...bounced around for years, and it has never been resolved. But yesterday's development, where we had a government minister said they're going to make crossings...
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the first exit onto the M4 slip road to London, Heathrow Airport.
And obviously, asking for your views and comments too. But the big story, I have to say, is unexpected, but it is confirmed, is the fact that the United Kingdom plunges, which is a word you'll hear a lot, but I'll use it for the last time, I guess, into recession. Background details briefly. City commentator with Aquis Exchange, David Beard. David.
Nick, hi there. We knew it was going to be bad. It was bad. It was 20.4%. That's a minus figure for the second quarter. That's April to the end of July. Expectations estimates was 20.5, so it's marginally better. Remember, the Office of National Statistics said 4 months ago that it could be minus 35%.
Yes.
Flat in the last quarter of 2019.
In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M4.
Listeners need to remember that dynamics for the UK are different from Europe and other parts. We have so much emphasis on the service sector, on retail, and on entertainment, which other countries don't have to the same degree.
Talk to you again in a little over 20 minutes' time. Full detail and analysis on what that means to come in this hour. 6 after 7, to a story that developed yesterday. The so-called migrant crisis, the crossings, I remind you, around 600...
Continue on M4 for 5 miles.
And those are the ones that we know about. And of course, with this warm weather, it is reportedly the numbers that are set to increase. But the government has tried to take some kind of action. A minister went yesterday to speak with the French government. Theo Archel, LBC's political editor, charts the progress. Theo.
It appears that a deal has been reached between the French and British governments when it comes
the
French and British authorities when it comes to stopping the boats, migrant boats crossing the English Channel. A price yesterday to make the route unviable. The agreement between the Home Office Minister Chris Philp during a visit to Paris will likely see the UK taxpayer hand over another £30 million to pay the French authorities to take tougher action. More than 4,000 migrants have made the perilous crossing so far this year, nearly 600 in the last week alone. But interestingly, Mr. Philp saying that 1,000 have been stopped by the French. That's only 1 in 5 boats actually stopped by the French authorities following the meeting in Paris. The immigration minister said it was vital the French authorities did their job properly.
Any border is a shared responsibility, and the United Kingdom and France today renewed and reaffirmed their absolute commitment to making sure this border is properly policed and this route is completely ended. That's what any two countries would do, regardless of whether or not they're in the European Union.
Philippe Mignonet, the deputy mayor of Calais, said British hypocrisy, and that's a quote, was to blame for the current crisis. They go to Britain because they can work in the black economy when they want. There is no control, he said. Meanwhile, Home Secretary Priti Patel faced criticism from other quarters, notably the ice cream brand Ben and Jerry's. In a series of tweets on social media, Ben and Jerry's said, "Hey, at Priti Patel, we think the real crisis is our lack of humanity for people fleeing war, climate change and torture. Let's remember we're all human and have the same rights to life regardless of the country we happen to have been born in." But in response, a source close to the Home Secretary described Ben and Jerry's, and again I'm quoting here, as overpriced junk food.
Theo, thank you for that. It does seem quite incredible, not least as human lives at risk, that it would appear that someone in the office of the Home Secretary gets in a war of words with an ice cream manufacturer. Strange, isn't it? So what is the solution? What do we take from yesterday? Unviable, what does that mean? Admiral Chris Parry is a former NATO commander, former Director General of Ministry of Defence, and joins me now. What do you read by the word, Admiral, an unviable? How likely is that to be able to be put into place?
I think it's entirely viable given the amounts of money we're pushing across the channel to create a
seized, where do the people on the craft go?
Well, I mean, that's the next step. You asked me how to put a viable regime in place. That's a viable regime. If you want to take them somewhere, my suggestion is you do it offshore. I'm on record this week as saying we need to use unemployed cruise ships. That would be a suitable way of actually holding people, giving them a medical, quarantining them, and then obviously screening them to see if they're actually suitable for coming to the United Kingdom or being returned to where they came first into the European Union.
I read that idea. It does seem to have a lot of merit. Those who are unsuccessful with their applications, they then get ferried back across the channel, effectively, do they, and deposited in France?
No, they should go back to the place of first entry in the European Union. That's what the Dublin Agreement currently says. But we need to be much more rigorous about this. People are divided in the country as to whether we should let people in or they should not be let in. The policy of the government is...
In 2 miles, at junction 4B, exit towards M3, M23.
You simply say, if we catch you on an illegal crossing in the channel, then you'll never be able to come to the United Kingdom. So all sorts of measures are available. It depends on the political appetite for actually enforcing them. In terms of the...
Sorry, sir, how would you police never be able to come to the United Kingdom? Because, regrettably, these people, I imagine, just throw their passports away.
Yeah, that's fine. But they've got fingerprints, and you can identify them. And if they enter the country illegally, then you say, fine. Okay, you will never be allowed to have residency here. But that's how you make it unviable. But it depends on political acceptance. It's as simple as that. But technically, it is possible. As a military man, I can tell you that give me 140 million, I will close down the channel. Both sides of it.
I'm sure you would, and you'd have the men and women helping you do it. Lastly, you use the word illegal crossing. You'll be aware, that the other side to this debate is there's no such thing as a legal crossing for these people. They cannot come here, they cannot make them, so they are forced into risking their lives on the English Channel.
Yeah, I mean, I spent my time as a search and rescue aircrew, and the thing that really irritated me is people putting themselves in a position of danger where they had to be rescued. So I'm afraid I'm a bit light on sympathy for people who put themselves at risk at sea, particularly in some of these boats. But the fact that the point is well made. We need to have better channels. We need to have a better regime for getting people legally into the country. But that shouldn't mitigate the fact we have criminality on both sides of the channel. And in the channel, you've paid for illegal services on getting one of those boats. I think we have to accept that.
Great speaking to you as ever. Thank you, Admiral Chris Barry. You were a NATO commander and former Director General of the Ministry of Defence. 12 after 7. Listening to that is Shoaib Khan, who's a human rights lawyer.
In a 1/4 mile, at junction 4B, exit towards M3, M23.
Or safe application system for these people. Therefore, they're forced onto these dinghies. Does he have merit in what he says there? Good morning to you.
Yes, good morning. Yes, exactly, and I think that is the biggest issue. Obviously,
exit at junction 4B, then keep right at the fork.
Persecution. If there was a way that they could arrive in the UK and take refuge here without having to risk their lives, I'm sure that's what they would prefer as well.
But to those who say risking their lives, those who say that they have risked their lives, they're in France, or they've been in Italy, or wherever they've been.
Continue on M4 for 4 miles.
Well, there's a number of reasons. I think firstly, one thing to, I think, clarify is that there are obviously other countries, Turkey, Jordan, many others that take many times more refugees than actually come to the EU. So a huge number go there, a tiny number comparatively come to the European Union.
Why? Once you're safe, if you're running away from persecution or war, once you get to Italy or you get to France, which are secure countries, why the need to continue to press north?
Because there could be a number of reasons for that. One, gender reason, usually is, and the fact that some of these people might be able to speak English, but obviously they don't speak German or Chinese or French, and so it's easy for them to be able to integrate or research or live in the UK. Secondly, they might have family here, they might have other links here.
What are other links aside from family links, Mr. Khan?
Sorry?
You said they might have other links, save for family. So apart from family, what might the other links be?
I might know they might have been here before, they might have studied here before, they might know about this country.
They might know about the country. So that's enough to allow you access to the United Kingdom because you know about it.
No, it depends what you mean by allowing you access. If we're talking about seeking asylum, then even if there is no link, then that's enough for you to allow. And all that's needed legally, and it's international law, it's accepted
in the middle of the channel, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see what the difference there is. I mean, the main thing that you were saying was what the difference is that we could turn them to where their point of entry into the European Union under the Dublin Convention. But we already have the Dublin Convention, so wherever we can return people, the Home Office tries every possible option that they have.
In 2 miles, at junction 3, take the A312 exit to Harrow, Hayes.
Human rights lawyer specialising in this field. Unviable, says the government. The Immigration Minister, what does that mean to you? Meanwhile, the Home Secretary reportedly in a war of words over ice cream. Doesn't really get much more stupid than that, does it? Let's go to potential government elsewhere. We have a running mate for Joe Biden, the Democratic candidate for those elections in the US later this year, and it is Senator Kamala Harris speaking at the debate a year ago, addressing Joe Biden's record on busing.
You also represent to oppose busing, and there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools, and she was bused to school every day, and that little girl was me.
More on that choice later in this 7:16 LBC News headlines. Holly Harris.
The UK has officially fallen into recession for the first time in 11 years because of the impact of the coronavirus pandemic. GCSE and A-level students in England are going to be able to use grades from their mock exams to secure their university place or job. Flights have been diverted in Edinburgh and the M8 motorway is closed after heavy rain and thunderstorms in central Scotland overnight. The weather very hot again with thunderstorms for most this afternoon, a high of 33 Celsius.
LBC Travel, I'm Joanne Webb. On the trains, there are no services running between Euston and Watford Junction because of an investigation, which also means that London Overground trains can't run between Watford Junction and Willesden Junction. On the Underground, the Circle line's not running clockwise. This is all down to a signal failure, and there are minor delays on the District line westbound. Also severe delays now on the Metropolitan line. On the roads in Walthamstow, Forest Road remains closed in both directions because of a burst water main. In Fulham, Peterborough Road is closed in both directions because of an ongoing investigation, and very busy on the M25 clockwise from junction 5 at the M26 to the Clackett Lane services because of the ongoing roadworks.
This is LBC.
At Harford, we're here to get you where you want to be. Why not get road ready with a free car check worth £15 at all our stores and garages? With 25,000 weekly slots available at